All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And in this video, we're going to show two things. Number one, how to pay off $447,000 of debt in 8.75 years. And number two, my secret weapon or secret tool on how to keep track of all my debts and pay them off. And so, believe it or not, I actually don't use Excel for keeping track of debts. I just use Excel as a whiteboard. I use a tool. This is my secret weapon called Grist, right? Grist. And if you've never heard of Grist, go to getgrist.com. It's much more structured than Microsoft Excel. So you see how everything's all over the place with Microsoft Excel, and this is why a lot of people have trouble doing bookkeeping and getting organized is Excel because Microsoft Excel doesn't have the appropriate guardrails and it doesn't have the appropriate structure to keep all of your data in a way that makes it easy to track. So what I do is I use Grist, and so Grist allows you to easily keep your data, your debts, and your income and all your budgeting in a very structured way, as long as you know how to set it up. And setting it up is kind of the hard part, but once you've got it done, then it's relatively easy. And you can actually use templates here, believe it or not. They have free templates for different use cases. But the funny thing is they don't have a template for keeping track of debt, right? So if I do a control F and try to find a spreadsheet based on, keeping track of your debts, they don't have it. So I may have to submit this, who knows, right? So that's what we're gonna do today. Use Grist, and I'm gonna do a demo of Grist first before I do a demo of the debt payoff. So as you can see right here, we have our budget and we have a snapshot of what our monthly cash flow is. So if you want to see how easy it is to modify this, is what you do is you go to the part where it says income, and then I list all of my income sources for the month here, maybe a job, side hustle 1, 2, 3, DoorDash, Amazon, Uber driving, and then you just kind of estimate how much you have for the month. If you have debts, right, you can put in all your information related to the debt right here, okay? And so as you can see right here, I have like 5 credit cards and then a line of credit, and then you can tie it to the bank that it's with, and also put in all these data points. So I just created this morning. So unlike most financial systems where it's very confusing, it's kind of slow, like for example, QuickBooks, I get confused if I ever have to go into QuickBooks. This is relatively easy to configure, and you can configure it to your own personal situation, right? And the main benefit of this compared to Excel is that this is a structured database, right? Whereas Excel is just all over the place, right? And because it's all over the place, just like a lot of people's debts, that's why a lot of people have trouble keeping track of their numbers, okay? And so here we have all the credit lines that we have available, and you can put in like the credit limit, the interest rate, and not only that, okay? You can keep track of like latest statement dates, minimum payments, latest statement balance, and you can auto calculate the cash flow index based on the statements that you enter. Now, you don't enter the statements here, okay? So what you do is you enter it in a separate section, right? There's a separate section. They actually call them a table of all of the statements that you have. Now, if you look at this may be a little bit overwhelming, right? Because we have like 15 statements entered in. And think about this, for one credit card, you have 12 statements. So if you have 5 credit cards, and I'm talking about per year, 5 credit cards, you have 60 statements that you have to deal with per year. And so when you enter that all in, it just gets so overwhelming. But because our views are so easily customizable, okay, what we can do is combine them, right? So let's take a look here. I'm going to show you how easy it is, right? So if I just go to Chase Slate, the system will show me all the statements just related to Chase Slate. Same with Wells Reflect, right? BOA cash rewards. These all are different based on the line of credit or the credit card that I select, right? So now we can have an easier view. So basically what happens with Excel is that Excel just only shows this view, right? And it's really confusing, and then you got to sort and do all that. Grist does that for you, okay? Look how easy it is. I just select the BOA cash rewards, and all I see are bank statements or credit card statements related to this cash rewards account from Bank of America. And not only that, okay? If you're like the average person, this is a problem that the average person has when it comes to keep track of debts. They don't have a centralized place to keep track of all their credit card statements, bank statements, and all that good stuff, right? So what you can do is when your bank statement comes out, okay, you could just download it and put it here. So if I just go ahead and let's assume I went to my bank account, got my credit card statement, and then you can see that it's just right here. And then if I want to view the PDF, I can easily view it here. See that? So this is just a fake credit card statement that I created this morning. And if you need to do any sort of reconciliation and verify if all of your numbers are correct and you want to look at the source document, you could just do an upload one time, and you can do that for every single card that you have, and you never really have to log in to the bank account after you've downloaded it one time, right? And so it's all here for you. And so this is why this is such a useful tool to keeping track of your debt. So let me just show you how this will work, right? So you can see here in this line of credit that I created, we don't have any statements at all, okay? Well, let's go ahead and add a statement to this line, link it to this line of credit, and we'll say, all right, this is a $200 balance, $2,000 balance with a $25 monthly payment and $0 in interest. And then all we do is we attach the credit card statement here, and now that's pretty much it. We're able to keep track of our records, and we can create many views of this, right? So of our data. Okay, so let's say I want the system to show me all my lines of credit, my debts, based on the cash flow index. Well, guess what? I just click this and it's sorting it already based on the cash flow index, because I can save different views based on a sort and also a filter, right? So if I just want the system to show me credit cards, I can create they call it a page. I want to see a view on that. I can definitely do that, right? So you can see here, this is sorted from smallest to largest. And if you're using the cash flow index to pay off debt, now you have an easy view to figure out, oh, I should, focus on the Chase slate first, right? So that shows you how easy it is to organize your debts. And not only that, okay, so we can hide certain columns, right? And if you want to only show a few columns that are relevant to you based on a certain view, you can easily do that. So you can see here the statement balance was hidden, or the latest statement balance. But I know, okay, that the cash flow index takes into account the latest statement balance and the latest payment. I don't see the latest payment here, but it's probably hidden in my view. So I can hide columns, and I can unhide them. So it's relatively easy, and this is an amazing tool that we can use to keep track of all of our data. All right, so now we see that we have a latest minimum payment here. And so again, this is an amazing tool, right? So you have different types of data that you need to link. And here's another cool thing that I want to show you before I actually do the demonstration of the debt payoff, right? So if you ever need any sort of reporting or summaries, right? So let's say that you want to, show how many lines of credit you have with the bank and all the totals, and maybe like the statement balance and the minimum payments. Well, you can easily do that with this report here that you can create. So as you can see right here at Chase Bank, I have 3 lines of credit, right? 3 lines of credit. And then you could see I have $67,000 in credit limits. And let me go ahead and zoom here so you can better see it with Chase Bank, and as well as the available credit limits, and and all the minimum payments, statement balance, and whatever I have available. So this is a relatively easy way to get a total report based on certain criteria. And let's say I want to see what's the total credit limits I have. I just click this column right here, and then you see that I have $97,000 of credit limits, right? So there's various ways that you can configure your data. And then you can see right here that, this is just a spreadsheet view. So they actually have different views like charts and reports, but I'm just showing you with spreadsheets, when it's structured, what the possibilities are, right? So easy. You have your income, your debts, your actual expenses, food, gas, insurance, and you can easily see your monthly cash flow right here. All right, so this is my secret weapon, Get Grist, or Grist. If you want to try it out, you go to getgrist.com. The only hard part is setting it up because some of the formulas that you need to use, you might have to use a little bit of Python. But hey, I actually don't know Python, and that's what ChatGPT or Claude is for, right? So you do have to know a little bit of concepts of database programming, but once you get the hang of it, then this is an amazing tool. And not only that, you can download like templates, right? So if you want to kind of use a template as a starting point and keep track of your debt and use it, configure it to your own personal needs or situations, you can do that. And not only that, the personal version of this is free, right? So if you're like a big company, you do have to pay, but if you're using it for your own personal use, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to the pricing, this is free. So this is an amazing tool. I might start promoting it. And who knows, if I get enough traction on these videos, maybe they might sponsor me. Who knows? Okay. So now let's go ahead and to our, what we call our whiteboard. That's not Grist, right? Because this is not a structured database. We're going to use Excel, right? So this is just kind of more of a free form of how we demonstrate debt payoff, right? So each tool has its own use, right? So I'm not saying Excel is completely bad, but Excel is unstructured, whereas Grist is a structured database, right? So yeah, so what we're going to do is pay off debt, and we're just going to use the same situation as last time. So we have our personal income, expenses, leftover checking and savings, and then we see that we only have $38.09 left over. I don't know about you, but if I had $7,000 of income coming in and I only had $38.09 left over, I would feel really bad, right? It almost feels worse to make that amount of money than to make like $3,000 and only have $38 left over, right? So what we're going to do is look at the situation, right? Create our budget. Remember, our budget is our debt attack plan, and we can easily create a budget in Grist, right? Income, credit, lines of credit, or debts, right? I only did lines of credit. I didn't put any loans in this example because I just want to make it easy. And then we just put our actual expenses. Remember the ones that are not tied to that, food, gas, insurance. And then we can easily see our budget here, much more structured way. And so we're going to do the same thing here. And the reason why we do this is because we want to do a comparison of what the average American banking style is versus what we call the velocity method. Now, what is the velocity method? Basically, it's just an alternative way of banking, right? Where we're actually not trying to use our checking account as our main operating account. And if you don't know what that means, I'm going to explain it a little bit later. But let's just go over the average American banking scenario first, right? We pay our bills, we get paid, we pay our bills, and we try to save money. Whatever we have left over, we try to put it in a checking and savings account, right? And if you take a look at the expense breakdown, we see that we have a lot of debt. Okay, 5 credit cards, an auto loan, student loan, a mortgage, and then we have our personal expenses not tied to debt, food, gas, insurance, and all that other good stuff. So when we're doing our budget, here's an important thing that we have to remember. We have to separate debt versus non-debt, right? So debt, credit cards, lines of credit, loans go into one category, and then all non-debt expenses, the things that you would still have to pay for even if you were debt-free, go into another category, right? So that's the important thing. And just to make this spreadsheet really easy, you'll notice that every debt has its own line item and payment, but the expenses not tied to debt, the things we still have to pay for, it's just a monthly average, right? We're just kind of assuming, oh, $2,000 a month, okay? And so let's go ahead and show the velocity method. So what this is basically we're going to show the income, same expenses. And here's a crazy thing. Okay, I'm going to show you the crazy thing. We're not going to save money, right? So this is going to be a 0. And you might be thinking, really, right? We're because a lot of people, we are socially conditioned by society to measure ourselves based on the amount that's in our checking and savings at the end of the month, right? So this is why a lot of people have trouble paying off debt, because they see the checking account number as like the final destination of our money. Whereas what are we doing? We're pretty much putting all of our money into a line of credit. So the only difference between the left side and the right side is on the left side, the checking account is the final destination of your money. On the right side, the checking account is what we call the middleman, or the temporary stop, right? As soon as we get paid, it doesn't stay there. or we don't try to make it stay there. We don't try to hold on to it. Where do we put it? We put the money into something called a line of credit. Okay, that's the difference between the left side. This is why the checking account is 0 here, to indicate that it is not the final destination of our money. Okay, now you might be looking at the two numbers and say, well, this is 38 and this is 30. Isn't it the same? Right now it is. But once we understand, when we change the flow of money and how we do the banking, this is going to be a lot bigger, even though the income is the same, right? And then we're going to assume we have access to a line of credit. So what's a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay back, and then use it over and over again, right? So if you kind of take a look here, what are the different types of lines of credit? Credit card, personal line of credit, home equity line of credit. Now I'm going to tell you something. We want to use either a personal or home equity line of credit for this. We don't, if we have a credit card, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. Why? Because with the personal or home equity line of credit, we can put our entire paycheck into it, right? We put our entire paycheck into it and immediately get it out. We have ultimate flexibility of when we can put in money and withdraw money. With the credit card, we do not have that ultimate flexibility, right? I put the $7,000 paycheck into one credit card. Now, can I use that credit card to pay the other credit cards and loans? No, we can't. We know we can't. This is why a lot of people have so much trouble overpaying debt, which is how you essentially pay off debt quickly, which is you don't save money, right? So what we're going to do is put all of our money into a line of credit. We're going to, okay, put it into, we'll assume 8% $90,000 home equity line of credit. That'll be our line of credit. And if you want to see how we put that in Grist, it's easy, okay? So I'll just say, fun times credit union HELOC, right? Home equity line of credit. And then if this is not in our list of banks, and we have a list of banks right here, you could either add it here directly, or you could just add it here, right? Fun times credit union, and then you just could click plus, and then it's like right there, right? You see that? See how easy it is? Because this is a relational database. We create relationships, okay? This is structured, not like Excel. Excel's all over the place, okay? All right, so now we say, hey, this is a home equity line of credit, and then we fill in all the information. So what do we have here? $90,000 at 8%, right? $90,000 at 8%, and then, oh, not 800, my bad, 8%. And then I screwed this one up too. All right, so now, once we get our home equity line of credit and have our statements, then we can easily enter them here. And you know what the cool thing is? I'm going to show you a cool thing. You see this little link right here? It means that again, you've created a relationship with one record and another. So if you need to see the statement for this one, the latest statement, you just click here and then it gives you a card. Isn't that amazing? That's crazy, right? Oh, let's look at the PDF. Oh my goodness, well, the possibilities are endless, right? And so let me just kind of show here, right? So we're going to assume we have a $90,000 8% home equity line of credit. I'm going to be honest with you. This is the hardest part of all this, implementing this whole strategy, okay, is actually getting the line of credit. Because who do banks lend to? Banks lend money to people who don't need it. So if you ever go to a bank and you need money, they're pretty much going to turn you away, because the bank knows from all the data they deal with, the gajillions of transactions they do per day, that people who need money don't pay you back, right? And you probably know this in a personal level, okay? Like, you ever lend money to people who said they needed it? They probably didn't pay you back. I've learned that lesson many, many times. And, sometimes I get amnesia and I probably have to learn it again, right? Maybe you were 5 years old when you put your hand on a hot stove, and then like 20 years later, you kind of forgot the stove was hot, okay? Or maybe I'm just stupid. I don't know, okay? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to assume we have a free and clear line of credit, but you're not going to get a free and clear line of credit if you only have $38 left over in all this debt, right? So why do we teach it this way? Because you understand the importance of having that line of credit, having all the credit before you even get into debt, right? So once you understand the strategy, and then let's say you pay off your debts and you're able to get a line of credit, then you'll be able to essentially crush debt going into the future. Now, for most people who contact me, they have a line of credit already. They just happen to get a line of credit when they didn't need money, right? A long time ago. And then they essentially did the average American bank style. And now they come to me and they have a maxed out line of credit. That's usually what happens. But if you don't have a line of credit, this is going to be hard. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just going to be a lot harder. Okay. But let's just assume we have a free and clear line of credit here. Okay. $90,000, 8%. Now we're going to use something called the cash flow index. Okay. So if you don't know what the cash flow index is, just a basic formula of the balance of the debt. So 5,000 right here divided by 175. So let me go ahead and zoom in. 5,000 divided by 175. So what you do is take the balance of the debt, divide by the monthly payment. Okay. And then what you do is you're basically giving your debt a ranking system, right? So this is how I do it in Grist. Okay. So I have a view that automatically sorts the debt by the CFI, cash flow index. Okay. So you see right here. Okay. You see this right here, cash flow index. You see smallest to largest. And then, you know, there's this formula that I use here. Again, if you don't know the formulas, just use AI, right? That's what AI is for. Okay. But you just got to tell the AI what you want. And so basically, smallest to largest, and then I figure out, oh, okay, well, this is the ones I should pay off first, because what does the small numbers mean? Okay, let's go over what the small cash flow index numbers mean. They basically mean that you have to pay little money in order to get a lot of cash flow, right? Whereas the big numbers mean that you have to pay a lot of money for a little bit of cash flow, relatively, right? In order to pay off this, so here's the reason why we don't pay off the mortgage first. In order to pay off, or in order for me to get this $1,200 back in cash flow, I had to pay $300,000, $300,000 to get the itty bitty $1,200 of cash flow. That's what that big cash flow index number means, right? Whereas with the credit cards, think about it, I can pay this credit card and this credit card, that's $45,000, and I'll get more cash flow because it's about $1,400 than the $300,000 mortgage that only gives you $1,200 of cash flow. So this is the easiest way. And once people, you know, out of the blue started sending me spreadsheets with like 10 debts, 20 debts, that was the only tool that I used where I could clearly see which debts to pay off. It is pretty much the most useful tool. Are there some exceptions that I would consider? Yes, right? I'm not going to go over them right now, but let's say you have 0% debt and it's a low cash flow index. I would just still make minimum payments, right? So, you know, maybe I'll make some exceptions, but this is the one I would start off with definitely, okay? So let's do this. Let's go ahead and move the low cash flow index numbers, we'll say below 50 into the line of credit, right? So how much credit card debt is that? It's 5, 8, 15, 27, 30. I'm going to go ahead and sum it up, and that's $85,000. Okay, 85,000. So guess what happens? Okay, we didn't get rid of the debt. We just did a simple balance transfer. All right, so guess what happens here? These credit cards, they go to zero because, again, it's a balance transfer, right? We're pretty much gone. And then take a look at this. You see, same income. You see how the income didn't change? But this $38 turned into $2,865.59. All right, I want you to stare at that. I want you to stare at that, okay? This is the part where you show your friends, and then they will decide if they wake up from the Matrix or not. And most of them, unfortunately, just like in the movie The Matrix predicted in 1999, they're not going to wake up. They're going to be in the struggle bus. They, in fact, it almost seems like they want to be in the struggle bus, right? But you don't, okay? Because you see how this $38 turns into $2,865.59. And now when you see this, it's like, how much is going to the bank? And how much could I have really gotten if I needed this strategy? How much cash flow, right? And so what we're going to do is now put the entire paycheck into that line of credit, take our expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. And after every single month, the balance goes down by $2,865.59, right? So let's go ahead and do this and show how that looks like here in Excel. Right, so 2865.59, and then we see that the balance, it just goes down about that amount, and then we have to obviously take into account the interest. So based on the average daily balance, multiply by the interest rate, and then divide by 12. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste, and then we see right here, oh my goodness, why is the debt going down without even me trying? And here's the crazy part, right? You see this $82,000 number. And you're overwhelmed, okay? This $82,000 number. right? But the minimum payment of this line of credit is usually the interest, or the interest plus a little bit of principal. So maybe it might be higher than the 557, right? When you put your entire $7,000 paycheck as an overpayment to the line of credit, you will never have trouble making the minimum payment. And a lot of people have trouble because they're only making the minimum payment rather than putting the entire paycheck, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then see right here that in 34 months, this debt is paid off, right? So debt is paid off. So like I said, Excel is very useful as a whiteboard demonstration, but when I'm actually keeping track of my finances, I want it to be in a structured manner so I can easily see and keep track of everything, all my files, all my PDFs. This is pretty much an incredibly useful tool where I can do that, and very amazing, okay? So real life, I would structure like this, but when I'm demonstrating a concept, I'm going to use Excel, okay? Because there's the right tool for the right job. Sometimes you got to use a spoon. Sometimes you got to use a fork. Sometimes you got to use chopsticks, right? Sometimes. Okay. So now 85K. So that's going to be the amount that we paid off in regards to credit card debt. So we have now the student loan, auto loan, and the mortgage. And then we see that in 34 months, okay, that we paid it off. Now we got to know the current balances of our debt, auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage, right? And so we see that we have the cash flow index here. This is the latest balance of the loans, right? And then we're just going to follow the cash flow index model. Now, the average person would look at this, okay, and say, hey, this student loan has a 7%, right? And they're not wrong, because that's, they'll look at the highest interest rate. But we have to understand that finance is not just about one interest rate, right? There's a holistic element to finance. And there's actually 3 factors that determine what the monthly payment is and the amount of interest that you pay. See, a lot of people understand that as the interest rate goes up, you pay more interest, right? But what they don't understand is that as the term goes up, you actually have a lower payment, but you pay more interest. And that's confusing to a lot of people. See, what people like to see is just a low interest rate and a low payment, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this auto loan first, because it gives us the most bang for our buck in terms of cash flow, right? So cash flow index, 10 grand for 400 bucks versus 31 grand for 460, right? Think about balance to payment ratio. Bang for your buck. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna move this 10 grand into the line of credit. Okay, 10 grand into the line of credit. So it's gonna be plus 10074.61. And then this is going to be $405 we get back in our cash flow. And then this is gonna be $3,270.75. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to do this, Control V, and I'm going to do this minus 3270.75. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. And then we see that in 37 months, that auto loan is paid off with our new cash flow. All right, so 37 months. And then this is going to be 85 plus 22, and then this is going to be 107K. And then this is going to be student loan and the mortgage, and it's going to be 37 months. So it'd be 37, and then 0. Okay. So now we can tackle the student loan. So there's some nuances here about interest rates that I'll just kind of briefly mention upon. Is that, yes, interest rate does matter, but it's more about balance to payment ratio. But, because you'll hear certain things like, oh, you should always move a loan into a line of credit. And that's actually not true, right? Everything's a trade-off. There's no perfect scenario. If most people were really smart, they would have just kind of not had a savings account and paid off all their debt completely, but most people don't do that, right? And so what I'm showing you is just an easy way where you can overpay the debt with a line of credit. And yes, the interest rate does slightly matter, but it won't matter as much as you think it will, right? But when it comes to the 30-year mortgage, right? What does this high cash flow index number mean? Well, it means that you're paying a lot of money for itty bitty amount of cash flow. So if you're moving this big number at 3% to 8, because that's the 8 is the interest rate of the line of credit, and you're only getting a itty bitty amount of cash flow back, you're going to overpay, right? I'm gonna show you this a little bit later. But let's go ahead and move this student loan into the line of credit. We're gonna follow cash flow index. The interest rate is similar, 7 to 8, not a big deal, right? I wouldn't ideally do it this way, but I'm gonna show you that even if you did at this point, you should be fine. The one that you really have to care about is that 30-year mortgage, okay? Because there's a nuance there that most people don't understand. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and do this in 0. And now our cash flow is $3,735.19, okay? And so now let's go ahead and update our cash flow. I'm gonna update the cash flow. So this is gonna be minus 3735.19, okay? And then we're gonna go ahead and update that and then do that. And we see that in month 45, paid off. Month 45 months, this is going to be 147K, okay, 147K. And then the mortgage, what's the current balance of the mortgage at 45 months? It's $275,512.41. Now, you have the default option of just making extra payments to this debt, right? You just make the monthly payment, you put your entire cash flow as extra payment, you can do that. Now, you could, or another way you could do it is using a line of credit to pay off the 3% loan. And that sounds crazy, right? In fact, there's a lot of people who really hate this strategy just because the line of credit has a higher interest rate than the 3% loan. And I'm going to show you that it's a little bit more nuanced than just the interest rate, okay? Now, why would you want to? You still use a line of credit to overpay the loan, right? Because the line of credit's the only tool available where you could pretty much dump your money in and easily take it out. You can't do that with the credit. This is the reason why nobody overpays credit cards, because credit cards, remember the first example, I put my entire paycheck into the credit card. I cannot take it out, right? People have a hard time with this, right? And the thing that made us successful until this part is we never segregated our income. That's another philosophical concept that I've talked about before. I'm not going to go into it today because we're at the 31-minute mark. So I want to finish this demonstration in 30 minutes. But we want to still not segregate our income till the very end, right? So if we overpay a loan, it's going to be very hard for us to get that money back. And then the way that we end up segregating income is we use our credit cards as backups, right? We want to make our line of credit as our main operating account. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because a lot of people are so angry that you're using an 8% line of credit to pay a 3% loan, okay? And let me just kind of show you here, right? So what you can do is if you partially pay off the loan with the line of credit and put your entire paycheck into the line of credit, right? Well, I'll call it a sweep amount. The interest rate effect is very minimal. Okay, so I put in all the loan information here, line of credit, blah, 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 current income expenses. And the expenses is everything except for the loan you're trying to pay off. That's just how it's calculated, right? So this 1264.81 is already accounted for here. And so if I see you do this using 8% line of credit, you see it pays off in 5 years and you pay 22 grand of interest. Okay, I think it's, yeah. Let me just verify the current amounts. Yeah, 275, yeah, 512.41. Okay, I did this demonstration last time, so the numbers should be good. So, okay, I have put all the numbers here. Now, some people are so offended that this 8% line of credit interest rate is higher than 3. And I say, okay, well, let's assume you got really, really lucky and you got a 1% line of credit. 1%. Remember this, 5 years, 22 grand. 5 years and 21 grand. So, you know, if you take a look at like how the housing market works, right? If the Fed says they're going to lower the interest rate, like I think even by 1 or 2 points, 1 or 2%, people are, you know, the demand for housing goes up, right? Whereas in our mind, this shouldn't really make a difference. It really shouldn't. Okay. Now, here's one other thing that we have to remember is that putting an entire loan into a line of credit and partially paying off a loan with a line of credit are two different things. Okay, they're two different things, completely different things. Loan replacement versus incremental loan payoff, completely different things. Okay, because if I have an 8% line of credit and I move this entire 3% loan into an 8% line of credit, Look at this, 71 grand of interest, and it takes 5.9 years, right? Why pay 2 or 3%, two or three times more interest than you have to? Okay. Well, let's not do that. And this is dependent on the interest rate. So let's say we're using like credit card interest rates. Okay. We never pay it off. We move this 3% loan into a 30% line of credit. We will never pay it off at whatever our current cash flow is. Okay. So remember that. All right. So now let me just go ahead and do this. 8%, right? Let's do this. 1%. You see that the interest rate makes a difference when you replace a 30-year mortgage with a line of credit. But when you're doing partial sweeps, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, right? And so that's why I say that yes, interest rate matters. Like if I use a 30%, I'm obviously going to pay more, but you see like, whoa, even 30% when I'm doing it this way. And listen, if you're going to use a 30% line of credit or credit card, make sure you have a good cash rewards point system or whatever, so you can offset whatever you paid here. I'm pretty sure if you're spending 275 grand and using plastic to pay it off, you'll be able to make it up, right? But what I'm saying is, assuming no rewards points, it's going to be a couple grand more even at 30%. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. So you can see this is my secret weapon of helping people pay off debt and keeping track of my finances. Because according to one YouTuber, I don't do velocity banking. I'm very mistaken. I just help people keep track of their finances. Okay. Obviously, I'm just a guy who made stuff up and I don't know what I'm talking about, right? None of this could help people. Don't worry. Just move on, move along. It's like Star Wars, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi talks to stormtroopers. There's no droids here. Move along. Move along. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.